Welcome to Get Wisdom Live with Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. What if God was also a co-host? What if the historically rare ability to question God directly and get profound answers back has been rediscovered? What would God say to today's sophisticated but deeply troubled world? Get Wisdom Live is here to share those answers with you. Here is Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. Welcome to another episode of Get Wisdom Live. I'm Brian Kelly, along with Get Wisdom founder and director, Carl Mollison. This week, creator comments on remote viewer revelations. So we've explored remote viewing, maybe not directly in past shows, but we have explored some revelations from certain remote viewers. One in particular was on an alien agenda, a Lucifer. We did one on Lucifer that was a lot of remote viewer revelations. They're quite interesting. So it's a complex topic. There's a lot of issues to explore in this. And I think this is an important show, Carl.
Well, I would agree. And it's sort of forced on us because this is something that is bringing forth information and people are listening and needing to take it into account, because to the extent it's hitting on things that are important to know about and understand, it has utility. The concern we have about any kind of intuitive practice, whatever it is, spiritual or secular, scientific, like scientific remote viewing, we've been cautioned all along the way in our work for Get Wisdom that any kind of intuitive outreach is going to get noticed. So we're going to start by talking about that in a moment here. But I want to make the point that this is what we do. We use intuitive explorations all the time. And as a channeler, that is also an intuitive expression or process to make a connection through non-local consciousness with another source of consciousness. In this case, it's a lofty one. But the problem is one never is sure of that. And that's a long discussion right there. But anytime you reach out with your mind, even just doing meditation, things can happen. And so it's important to keep in mind, whenever you hear something from a psychic, take it with a grain of salt and keep in mind that there can be sources of contamination. And so we'll get into this now.
Indeed, we will. You asked creator, many people recommend courses and ways to do meditation and remote viewing. Are there dangers in following such recommendations?
All right. And this is what creator of all that is said in answer. The dangers are very real, that all who reach out into the beyond intuitively will be answered in one way or another if they are capable of receiving and translating a message to reach the conscious awareness. So without safeguards from the divine realm, it is always a hazardous prospect. All who do so will be interfered with in one way or another. At a minimum, they will be put on a list to receive further targeted indoctrination, for they are inherently a danger by merely being curious about this undertaking. It shows they are escaping current control to eliminate any such outreach or belief in a higher awareness or higher sources of knowledge and information. In addition, if they are capable of receiving intuitive thought at the conscious level, they will find themselves often talking with an impostor, and this will be a slippery slope, leading them further and further into a greater degree of control by the extraterrestrials. So we normally do not recommend anyone follow a secular approach to meditation or intuitive outreach whatsoever. This needs to be a spiritual practice from first to last.
You know, this last sentence just made a huge impact on me when I read this. This is really something that should be on a billboard, for everybody to see in lights. That intuitive outreach, and this doesn't really affect everybody unless you have true intuitive outreach. Everybody has some intuitive outreach, but we're talking about remote viewing is a very specific skill that not everybody has. A relatively small percentage of the population actually enjoys it. But if you do have that, without it being coupled with a spiritual practice, you're basically, walking in the Alaskan woods without any protection from grizzlies or wolves or all the other predators that are hanging around there.
Yeah, and you'll draw flies. This is the point, and we've heard this a number of times. You will always be heard. You will always be noticed because you're being watched. The world is being watched all the time by extraterrestrial psychics. They want to recognize who's got more intuitive ability because they want to corral them. They want to sideline them. They want to approach them, do a handshake, get involved with them in some way to then keep them disempowered by maybe supporting them on the surface, but deceiving them ultimately in various ways. And that's the risk of using this approach and hoping to have quality knowledge and actionable advice be the end product. It can be loaded. It can be delivering a poison pill. So this is the problem with it.
And I think the thing about the imploring that it be a spiritual practice isn't because it's going to please God or displease God, or God's going to get angry if you don't have a spiritual practice coupled with the remote viewing skills. It's about protection and safety at the end of the day. It's not that God's going to pass judgment on you. It's that you've got villains out there. You got predators out there, consciousness-wise, demons, extraterrestrial psychics, you name it, that are real hazards to somebody engaging in these practices. And so a spiritual practice is for your protection. It's not to please God or not please God. It's for your protection. That's really the point I want to make now and probably at the end of the show as well. U.S. creator, a remote viewer has commented about his perception that there was some kind of universal control mechanism, quote unquote, that he ran into frequently. The one striking example he gave was that tens of thousands of remote viewers with abilities to look anywhere in time and space have tried to use those abilities to win a $100 million lottery. And yet not one of them that he knows of has ever been successful. He speculated there must be some kind of universal control method to stop people with intuitive abilities from doing whatever they want. What is that? What force or intelligence or mechanism or obstacle is in place governing this ability? Is it karma, their higher selves, or even the interlopers and their ability to manipulate and limit the reach of remote viewers? What can Creator tell us?
All right, Creator says, all of those sources as a kind of governance might be in play at one time or another that will determine someone's success or failure at making a future prediction. The first problem is the future is always uncertain, some aspects more so than others. Visualizing a cityscape in the future might well be quite easy to do because that future is already in existence on a future timeline, barring some huge disaster. The devil is always in the details. Getting specific information about something that is going to be decided randomly is a much less likely thing to happen because it has not yet been the case that that number is in existence. There will be a future number in the future extension because the existence of a lottery is presumed by energetic creations already in motion in the present. And that will be creating a likelihood of a lottery being held on the future timeline, the future extension of the current physical reality as perceived by beings in the physical. But the winning number in that future extension need not be matched precisely with the number that comes up when those in the current timeline reach a point in the future where the next lottery is held. When their turn to be a witness to the lottery comes about, as the new present moment, it will be indeed random forces determining the lottery number that is chosen. All other things being equal, and there's no scam underway and so on. So it is predictable there will be lottery winners and losers in the future. But to bring about one's personal gain in choosing the number will not be feasible in advance, except under extraordinary circumstances involving divine intervention or a manipulation done by interlopers who are privy to what is taking place and might be able to carry out a manipulation to see someone rewarded of their choosing. So, unless someone is part of their cabal and simply wanting to use their psychic ability to reward themselves, even for a good cause, it will not be supported by the divine realm, and they will be on their own. And this is because games of chance, taking risks of that kind, are far too likely to become a source of corruption than benefit, and will likely not be supported through divine assistance because it will create desire in many others to take chances on risky approaches and various schemes to game the system. And this will greatly support the darkness because most people have to be losers for lotteries to be practical. To encourage many to participate when almost everyone loses is not divine to begin with. So those engaged in pursuing such dreams will be entirely on their own, and the odds of winning a game of chance with such long odds as a lottery are no greater for a would-be psychic than an average person coming up with a number within their own mind, independent of any extra gifts or advantages.
Well, this is a lot to take in, actually. Creators basically coming forth and saying that, well, in most cases, it's not any particular consciousness per se that's blocking, you to be able to do this. It's the nature of reality itself, right? And so that's
this is something that I've noted again and again that is a talking point people use to disparage and dismiss intuition, psychic ability. Well, if people were really psychic, they'd be winning the lottery, but we're learning mechanistically impossible.
Right. Yep.
Except under very, very special circumstances.
Right. And now you're in a hierarchy of intervention, because you could have the interlopers intervening to try to manipulate the lottery. And then on top of that, you could have the divine realm intervening to prevent the interlopers from intervening. So who knows what's going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's like a roulette wheel spinning, and where it comes down might not be decided to the last instant. So yes. There you go. Take your chances if you wish.
Exactly. No guarantees in this world. U.S. creator, remote viewing has been employed to guide investment in cryptocurrencies, despite a described common difficulty in predicting financial outcomes to benefit people personally. Why was that successful, at least initially?
All right, creator answers. The first problem we see with the use of psychic probing becoming involved with investment in cryptocurrencies is that the entire enterprise is non-divine. People can use their intuition for whatever they like. It is a gift from us as part of the human makeup, to the extent it has not already been snuffed out or diminished too greatly to be of much use. And the latter is what most people would say in not recognizing their own psychic abilities as being prominent and of practical value, because what they experience personally will be very catch as catch can, something noticed after the fact and not amenable to making predictions one might bet money on. The problem with cryptocurrencies is that this is an extraterrestrial concoction. That is a kind of Ponzi scheme. So early investors in such things can ride the gravy train as long as the interest grows, and that is what has been happening since the advent of the first cryptocurrency. Others have come along and been launched to great fanfare and growing amazement and excitement by naive investors enamored of the next big thing and all too likely to jump aboard with both feet without looking first. This is what happens with many things that become a kind of mania, and there have been many examples throughout history of this. There is a flurry of excitement, a surge of interest, and widespread adoption, but once everyone has made their investment and there's no new money that can be put into the sector, there will be a top formed, and with with no new surge in valuation, people may begin to have doubts, and any trades will likely be withdrawals rather than a new investment. The price will start to decline, and as it goes lower, may well trigger a selling panic at some point. And such a plunge will dishearten more and more true believers who will jump ship. Getting out along the way might prove to be prudent. This is not to say that all such investments will have a very simple trajectory that is predictable. Many people will see a dip in price as a buying opportunity. That can revivify a flagging investment and create a new surge to even reach a new high level before a repeat retracement happens. So such manias can get going and keep going for a long period of time. But eventually something will happen, if only something new and shiny of greater lure, and people will get tired of the eventual plateau. There might also be a coming to the senses that undercuts support on a widespread level. This is what we see will happen with cryptocurrencies because they are more wishful thinking than substance. The underlying technology has many uses, but to declare something as having value simply because it is unique and has a high-tech character is still an emperor with no clothes. It is only if others agree that it is valuable that will make it so. And that is a precarious perch, and history will show this. Many will lose fortunes before this is a footnote of history.
So I think Creator kind of took some license here and an opportunity to really talk about cryptocurrencies as being the bigger threat to more people, I think, when the question was really about why are these particular remote viewers having more success with seeing cryptocurrency. But I think the answer is embedded in here. And the Creator is saying that the reason probably why they had success is because this was a general upward trend with a new technology. And so, it's like remote viewers can see, general trends as opposed to specific individual occurrences like a lottery number, for instance. And so they were just, by predicting trends successfully, they were able to help their clients, make some money. But not because they were seeing a particular number, but because they were identifying a trend, which isn't all that remarkable when you think about it, given that the newness of this whole phenomenon.
Well, stock trading is very similar. There are hot stocks and story stocks that people jump into because they read about it, because it's being promoted by financial people. There's a widespread awareness among the savvy of pump and dump schemes, they call it, where they put out all the flurry of excitement and announcements and drive a price of stock up beyond where it really reasonably should be. And then the smart money sells out at that temporary peak. And it doesn't mean that the investment is necessarily a scam. It's just timing and the vicissitudes of investment and growth and all of those factors. But the cryptos are something that is a manipulation of humanity.
Yeah.
And one of the parts of this was mind control manipulation to create interest in human beings to be investors, knowing this is a scam with an intention to impoverish people.
Sure.
So just keep that in mind. There's a roller coaster going on, and actually there's been a drawdown this whole year in the sector. I don't know if it'll surge back up again or not, but I don't like what I'm hearing from Creator about the likelihood this is going to go on for a long term.
Well, essentially what you have is exactly what you're talking about, Carl. It's like a stock market, except the stock market is highly regulated and the cryptocurrency market is almost not regulated at all.
Yeah.
So it's a free-for-all. It's a wild west. It's a jungle. And, you go in there naively, with money that you can't afford to lose, and you're going to be in trouble. So it's like anything else. Don't gamble with money you can't afford to lose.
Yeah, you need timing signals normally to do well at investing. And there are people who use their intuitive ability and even divine support to do financial advice. And that there's nothing wrong with that. The divine is not against people having fortunes and people making money, being prosperous, using their intelligence. and their expertise to do anything. And that includes making money through
Sure.
financial tools. But this is something a little different. That's the point we're making here.
Gotcha. Carl, you asked Creator, during a discussion of free will, a remote viewer commented that everyone encounters darkness and that you cannot let some scary monster in your dreams rob you of your sovereignty. He said, do you own your yes? Do you own your no? Because if you don't, someone else will. What is Creator's perspective?
All right. Creator tells us this is a perceptive awareness that free will be challenged many times through the forces of darkness wanting to manipulate. So if people are complacent, they become more likely to be manipulated, at least indirectly, if not directly, because they have dropped their guard. They may be taking risks and simply being unaware there are many sources of active influence conducting programming and mind control manipulation of all kinds. That goes on around the clock and can be highly effective in manipulating individual and collective perceptions on a global scale. So your free will is a privilege, not a guarantee things will go well. As with all aspects of your existence, when you are in the physical realm, you are at risk. Because of the nature of that environment, you are in a physically fragile form that needs care and feeding and protection from any sources of adversity. All of those vulnerabilities are being exploited to harm many of your fellow humans and you as well, to what extent they can get away with. This may happen because you are not aware the problem exists and hence are not saying no at all, even though you might be under pressure from deep within your mind through mind control. If it is not in conscious awareness, you are a sitting duck. So this caution is quite apt and a valuable one, as a warning of what may well happen to the unwary. Unfortunately, your world being the way it is, almost everyone is unwary to an unhealthy degree, believing you're safer than you think you are, when such is not the case. Given the level of human ignorance, it is wise to partner with the divine as a way to learn all you can about what is true and what is false, and to get divine assistance for protection and healing from potential manipulations designed to undermine you, alter your thinking, and make you vulnerable to calamities that otherwise might destroy you.
So I included this question because I thought it was, particularly prescient, and it was a good, important question to ask about the nature of our free will and the idea of whether do we own our yes and our no. And the Creator here is essentially saying that free will is not a guarantee, but it is yours to govern. It's yours to manage, and I think Creator, was in accord with this answer. You asked Creator. A remote viewer commented, his accuracy was consistently around 65%, well above chance, but far from perfect. Contrast that with an earlier discussed fellow from a previous channeling who helped solve multiple crimes and successfully predicted with great detail the next day's experimentally chosen destination with 100% accuracy over a 10-day period. We had covered that in a previous show, Carl. Why the significant difference? What can Creator tell us?
Creator says, such examples are showcasing differences between the individuals, their ability, as well as the extent to which they are doing their assessment solely on their own, using their own native ability, or receiving divine assistance to be more accurate and more reliable in gaining information and taking action in ways that confirm the validity of predictions.
This is probably one of the shortest answers we've ever had in the history of this show, Carl. But it doesn't mean it's not a rich answer in terms of what's being communicated here. It's Creator's basically saying the difference is simply one of ability, or in some cases, getting additional help from the divine realm. And what more can be said, right?
Yeah, and it's an important thing to understand about any kind of intuitive work, even if it's spiritual or pseudo-spiritual or for a nefarious purpose. When people are doing it on their own, it will be much more subject to error and corruption to distort what the person is perceiving. And the divine can help greatly to make an intuitive enterprise productive and beneficial.
When there's a divine purpose.
Yes.
You ask Creator, how completely can the interlopers control and or manipulate and alter the intuitive perception of highly gifted intuitives who lack divine protection because they failed to ask for it? A remote viewer has commented how disconcerting it was to get a clearly defined and even corroborated viewing one day, corroborated with other remote viewers looking at the same thing, only to see everything change, negating essentially the previous day's revelations. He described how it seemed there were tricksters out there messing with him. He didn't know who or what they were, but he was convinced of their reality. What can Creator tell us?
Creator says there is indeed more than one possibility explaining a failed future prediction. As we have stated, the future is always uncertain, at least to varying degrees. This is why we very seldom weigh in with predictions, other than things relating to the big picture, but not necessarily something in fine detail about what a person might say and do in the course of their day, experiencing their life. There are many opportunities for life to intervene and change the projected likelihood of something happening. This is because people are not robots. They are impinging on the universe with their own energies. And that is what is largely determining what happens. As a part of culture, each person leaves a mark, and that is largely an uncertain trajectory. Some things are more likely to happen. For example, someone following a work schedule because that is their habit. But the details of what takes place and why might vary widely. And of course, even going to work on a given day has a level of uncertainty, as there are many reasons one might need to stay home or have an appointment somewhere or take a day off for personal reasons and so forth. Given that this applies to everyone, we would say that reality is a highly volatile proposition at a minimum, and quite uncertain as a consequence, at least regarding the personal level dependent on human choices and shifting feelings and priorities. So there is a simple, pragmatic, built-in limitation of using precognition as a planning tool. Counting on the visions it creates will always reflect a probability and not a certainty. Beyond that basic reality, which is dependent on the quantum energies bringing things into existence and keeping them in a form perceivable by the senses, individuals and their non-local consciousness will vary because of how they operate, to what degree they can be dispassionate and not colored by emotion or influenced by self-doubt, or perhaps are working solely on their own energy and intentions with little or no divine support, because they are not in alignment to begin with, or seeking divine assistance directly and effectively. Many people make an assumption they are doing spiritual work because that is their thought and intention. But it takes more than just believing you are a lofty person and therefore favored by the universe, and in actuality, being supported actively by the divine realm, because we must have specific requests in order to intrude on a person's life experience in any fashion. There is far more wishful thinking when people set out to use their psychic ability to co-create their reality, for example. Most times they will be acting on their own because it is all based on assumptions and not a deliberate active intention for divine partnership, supported by 100% belief in the divine and belief in the self as worthy of divine intervention on their behalf.
So Creator is tutoring us again in the knowledge that the future is simply uncertain. There's a lot of reasons why a remote viewer will pick up, something one day and it changes the next. And that's because the future could have changed, as well as other, forms of interference or what have you, as well as fluctuating abilities. So there's a lot to take into account here. But I think the underline is that, again, the future just cannot be predicted 100% certainty at any time.
And to do better at it, you need divine support. We're hearing this again and again now. And to get that is not just through wishful thinking.
Right.
You know, I'm a spiritual person. I love everyone. Love is the answer, and so on. You must actively request divine partnership. And you have to believe 100% that there's an almighty being out there listening to your thoughts and willing to act on your behest. And you have to feel worthy yourself to be interacting with the mightiest and loftiest of sources of knowledge and wisdom. So there are requirements here to be a part of a higher activity at that level of excellence.
Yeah. And, you know, there's probably a divine purpose in a lot of incidents where the divine will take a specific personal interest in the outcome of the remote viewing sessions. So, I mean, it seems like, you know, we can ask for divine assistance, but we're also largely on our own. This is a do-it-yourself world down here, right? We're in charge of our world, and we're supposed to bring the divine in upon request. But just because we request something doesn't mean the divine is going to grant it either. You know, so there's probably a divine purpose anytime the divine is truly intervening to assist a remote viewer in seeing a very accurate future. So we just keep that in mind. You ask creator, in contrast to the remote viewers' futile efforts to use remote viewing to win the lottery, there is the example of Helen Hadsell, who reportedly used visualization to win all kinds of contests with improbable odds. Wikipedia says of Hadsell, she claimed that her ability to win contests came from the projection of energy each person possesses, which she called auric energy. She championed the phrase, anything the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Wikipedia further states, she further shared that the contests she won were something she felt ahead of time that she would win, including the Formica house. She reported that she had picked out a lot and had plans drawn up even before she was declared the winner. Similarly, she said she had acquired passports and required immunizations before winning a foreign trip. She is clearly of the belief that anyone can do this with visualization. She is one of those credited with popularizing visualization as a means of getting whatever you want. Can Creator tell us what the backstory is on Helen Hadsell and her success versus the remote viewer's failure?
All right, this is a quiz, so get your answer written down and we'll grade you later. Creator says, this is an interesting example of what can be done by someone with strong belief and who is also in divine alignment. This is a rare combination of qualities and attributes and having a natural gift for being able to see the future from looking at her own Akashic records, which indeed have the past, the present, and future extensions being recorded simultaneously. If one is sufficiently intuitive and able to tune in accurately to their own personal Akashic records, they will be able to discern much specific information about their own doings in the past, as well as the provisional future, at least. She was able to profit personally because this was viewed as a useful demonstration of what is real about intuition. So it was seen by the divine realm as a benefit to have such an example by someone who was not trying to curry special favor, but simply seeing there was an alignment of opportunities for her and following up in a way that would put her in the game, so to speak. So this was seen as a win-win by a divine realm, to present an example of possibilities, to showcase psychic ability in a positive light in a way that was harming no one. Keep in mind that doing this was not simply because she was a favorite of the light. It was because the majority of humanity is at a huge disadvantage through manipulation by the darkness to squelch individual attainment, success, and happiness much of the time. This is manipulated to be the case. People are dimmed down and dumbed down as a routine. Your ability to see things intuitively was corrupted genetically long, long ago. It is only through Creator reawakening those properties, at least to some degree, that enables people to do what they can do, like this woman. The premier tool and use for intuitive reach is to be in tune with and communicating with the divine realm as an ideal. That ideal rarely happens other than for a few gifted souls. This is how prophets come to be. They have natural gifts and a life mission to use them for a higher good. This can be through many means, and while this might seem like a prosaic life lived on a solely physical level, even for material gain, this fits into a larger picture as we have described for you. One must start somewhere to promote the idea of what divinity can do. It is like a puzzle. You must find your way back home by following the breadcrumbs, so to speak, and putting two and two together. This is because we cannot lead too directly, but only hint at the possibilities as a reminder and encouragement to show opportunities. But you must recognize these for what they represent and follow the lead to a larger understanding that may well awaken you to pursue a deeper truth. This is how the contest you are here to solve between good and evil will be won. It will be won by those following their inner guidance coming from us, as well as your own inner nature and desires as soul characteristics. So this example you give is more one of a special circumstance for a special life mission and not something anyone can emulate, at least not to have an exact replay of her circumstances of seeming good luck time after time. There are many applications and benefits in applying intuitive ability. That is a natural ability all have within them to some degree, if only in a latent form. Not all will be able to reawaken it and put it to good use. But just knowing it is there for a high purpose and that the divine is real and is connecting with many through their intuitive abilities is valuable knowledge in seeking the truth of things. And that awakening has a tremendous value far beyond the personal benefits to any individual human being and what they can do that makes them special.
There's a lot to unpack here with this answer, Carl. I go back to what Creator said. Keep in mind that doing this was not simply because she was a favorite of the light. And what that statement is saying is not that she wasn't a favorite of the light. She was a favorite of the light. But the Creator is saying, keep in mind, this was not simply because she was a favorite of the light. An example I would give would be, if you're a baseball team and you need a pitcher, you need someone with skills, right? You need someone who can actually do the job and do it well. And she was a favorite of the light in this instance because she was already in divine alignment as a soul coming and being born into this earth. She already had the psychic abilities. She had the intuitive abilities, and she had deep belief already. Creator didn't have to gift those attributes to her. She had already attained those. And so Creator saw this as an opportunity to use her and her abilities and her skills and her accomplishments as a spirit to put on a show for people and give them an example of what can be reached for in terms of spirituality and in terms of the human future. I think that's what's really going on here. It wasn't that she was handpicked for, a special endowment that, rewarded her at the expense of everybody else. She had these abilities that very few have because the majority of humanity is going to use disadvantage through manipulation by the darkness, which is exactly the quote that comes after that. So just pointing that out here, I think. You ask Creator, a remote viewer has said his awakening was largely shaped by music. He was a self-professed deadhead, an avid and enthusiastic follower of the 1970s rock band The Grateful Dead. This remote viewer said he experienced some form of universal or collective consciousness experience every time he went to a Grateful Dead concert. As a result, he attended 97 of them. He said he never had a similar experience with any other band, nor could he have the experience by simply listening to a recording of the concert. There are rumors that this band worked with the CIA and used classified MK Ultra waveform speaker technology to expand the consciousness of the audiences. Was this perhaps for research purposes? When the band's leader, Jerry Garcia, died, this remote viewer says he mysteriously lost any urge to attend another concert. What can Creator tell us?
All right, Creator says, this is a good demonstration of intuitive ability, relaying an accurate impression of personal experience that was indeed experienced on an intuitive level and appreciated as being something unique and special. And that indeed is the case here, because intuition is so underappreciated, being labeled as paranormal and not normal, and doubted so frequently by non-experiencers. So what this individual was experiencing was an intuitive perception of something special during the concert events that were held live. This was not a governmental operation or manipulation surreptitiously to influence people, but it was done by the darkness for that reason. Music is a divine creation, but that does not mean musicians cannot be co-opted to work for nefarious purposes at times, particularly if they are not in good divine alignment and seeking a partnership avidly in all they do. As you know, drug use of any kind will open up a person energetically to possession by dark spirit meddlers who are always looking for ways to corrupt and undermine people to gain their energy. They are also working against love and light and delight in causing trouble for their human hosts. So when there is a heavy drug use by people attending a rock concert, for example, where there are dark beings watching and waiting for opportunities, the attendees may well become possessed and manipulated by dark beings of all kinds. The consequences will be highly variable depending on individual vulnerabilities and history, including their karmic backlog of unhealed trauma. The entire free love movement of the 60s generation was an orchestrated phenomenon of the darkness to shatter traditional norms, encourage hedonistic behavior as a kind of tribal movement that brought the young together unwittingly, not realizing they were being manipulated and groomed to be acolytes of the darkness in suspending skepticism and the warnings of others, like parental figures, being discounted. This was largely because of programming by the interlopers to make the young believe, falsely, they were part of a new vanguard that was special, and only they could chart their own course. Only they could see the value in things of interest to them. And they knew better than authority figures about the value of recreational drugs and the kinds of feelings that were developed and grew over time from attendance at rock concerts, especially over and over again. The fact that this group in particular developed such a strong cult following was no accident. It was an orchestration to be a Pied Piper for the young, to draw them in and corrupt them. This was all done without the awareness of the musicians themselves or anyone associated with them on a professional level. This was all a manipulation done by psychic means, both through dark spirits and by extraterrestrial beings who were manipulating the spirit realm to be weaponized in ways they believed would be advantageous to undermine humanity. We understand this seems wildly improbable, but nothing on a mass scale that is being orchestrated to happen for a dark purpose is truly benign. There will always be people harmed. There are many individuals who essentially have traded years of their lives following a herd around because they are programmed to need their Pied Piper. And their lives indeed will have a different trajectory and endpoint as a consequence. All the while, they will feel fulfilled and not appreciate what they missed out on, taking a fork in the road, following the siren song that drew them.
You know, Creator's line there, we understand this seems wildly improbable. And on a first hearing, that's true. But, you know, if you stop and really think about everything Creator said here, as well as what we've been sharing with the Get Wisdom Project for the last 5 years, it doesn't seem improbable at all from that perspective. When you consider the arrogance of the youth in the 60s, especially, and the arrogance of the youth, since the 60s, it seems unnatural for young people to discount the hard-earned wisdom of their elders, in such a complete fashion. That if you stop and really think about it, it seems like that's got to be manipulation, Carl.
Well, it was entirely a manipulation. And the 60s generation did grow up a bit. Some realized this is not helping them. It is misdirecting them. It's making them more indolent and missing the boat, as others were developing careers and starting families and so on. I personally know of people who were deadheads. They followed this band around the country and went to many, many concerts. And for years, this is not something that's going to help you have a nest egg to retire on, for example, or maybe even meet someone really worthy of a life partner if it's another person who's a druggy cult follower. I mean,
right.
This is, it seems harmless on the surface. Young people acting out, acting up, and, sowing their wild oats and, throwing caution to the wind as young people do, and imbibing substances and so on. But that has a sinister purpose behind it. It always does.
Yeah. I knew a guy who attended one of the early Led Zeppelin concerts, and he attended, I think that's still considered the loudest concert ever in history in terms of decibels. And he was like right next to the speaker. So he was young. He was like 23, 24 years old, and he had severe tinnitus following that concert. And, I asked him about that, and he says, oh, it was worth it. It's like, really? So, yeah, it was a strange period. We live in a strange period now, but that had its own level of strangeness. It was quite interesting. U.S. creator, a remote viewer was given the target of a Mayan pyramid where an anomaly was photographed. He entered the door and reported encountering a large conscious presence that was aware of the viewer's presence and who could read his mind and know everything of importance about him. The viewer reported, there was no way I could bullshit this entity. Can creator tell us who or what he encountered? Was it a disembodied consciousness, a fallen angelic, a deceased Anunnaki lost soul spirit, or a physical Anunnaki psychic intercepting him?
All right, creator says, this was indeed a physical Anunnaki extraterrestrial psychic, and is a common experience of intuitives who are in effect roaming the skies, moving across timelines to explore and seek information, or simply wanting to have interesting experiences because they might be curious about a location at a great distance they would have practical difficulty even visiting in the physical, or might want to be reaching into the past to be a part of long ago events or the future and seeing what might become of a present circumstance or environment. Whatever the reason, when people go forth intuitively, they are always at risk because doing so will be noticed by extraterrestrial beings, as well as the dark spirits, always hovering and wanting to make mischief. The divine must simply stand aside and watch what people choose to do. We cannot intervene to warn them or confer protection unless we are asked specifically to be a part of things, to serve as a guardian, for example. This is what guardian angels are for, but largely are not utilized because of human ignorance. There may be certain circumstances where an intervention is done to help someone keep breathing, but even that might be impossible if people put themselves at risk with reckless disregard for the possibilities once too often, because that will be seen as making a choice to put the self in harm's way, if only through ignorance, and then the consequences will ensue. This, the law of karma, will see as a learning opportunity and a life lesson, and it is that for sure, if a painful one. We told you before, and have said this many times, that an intuitive outreach will always be noticed. The The question is then, who is watching and listening and is in a position to interact with the person and begin to influence them? As we told you, we cannot lead. We cannot intervene in your life unless we are invited. So if someone is out exploring things with remote viewing, they are on their own unless protection is pre-requested with a high belief quotient, as we have mentioned, is necessary, and is not dropping their guard in the moment for personal selfish reasons that would also lower our ability to assist them. Your energy determines much of what happens. If you drop your guard, we cannot make up for that necessarily. There are many nuances and many uncertainties because of the variable nature of existence, your prior history, even your feelings moment to moment will influence things. It is mostly your intention that determines what we can listen to and act on. But if you are asleep at the wheel, for example, you might well experience an accident, and even fatally, because we cannot protect everyone from everything at all times, simply because we might like to see you happy, healthy, and enjoying your lives.
This is a big puzzle piece that I am grateful that Creator has now provided for this puzzle we're trying to put together, Carl. Because I've encountered this kind of testimony from remote viewers, from people who have different psychic experiences, or even nightmares, right? Even nightmares where they run into this kind of consciousness that acts as kind of a guardian, as a gatekeeper, so to speak. And this is where Creator says that remote viewing needs to be a spiritual practice from start to finish, right? Because this is like going out into the Alaskan woods. Like I said, if you go out there without a firearm or bear spray, or at least with other people who have, create a group, kind of thing to be a bear deterrent, you're taking your life in your hands, right? And these Anunnaki psychics are nothing to mess with. These are beings that can live up to 1,000,000 years. They've been studying humanity since the inception of human beings. They've been here forever, essentially. They have deep knowledge, and their psychic abilities way surpass basically any humans, in terms of raw power and reach. So this is nothing to take lightly, people. And when Creator says this needs to be the remote viewing and needs to be a spiritual practice from first to last, it's for your benefit that it's said. It's not for Creator's benefit, it's for yours.
Well, and the other thing I would point out that I think is helpful to put all this in perspective, we're not just intentionally wanting to pick on people or find flaws and things. We're using what people have reported as sort of the most interesting of the things they've uncovered. But as we see in these examples, they're not really uncovering with full understanding. They're bumping into things and not really sure what they are. And Creator is explaining it's not going to be the divine realm most of the time because they have to stay in the background. They can't pop up into your life and show themselves. That would change your trajectory. So it's likely something dark. And people who do these remote viewing exercise understand there is darkness, but they're quite naive and vulnerable, thinking they're doing something helpful, and they're being programmed to believe that as well.
Yeah.
And that makes it all the more risky. They're going to run into trouble and spread that to you, unfortunately.
And, when it comes to asking for protection and the idea that it needs to be a spiritual practice, you need to be invoking and asking protection of the divine, not of the universe, right? You need to be asking God or divine members like Jesus or Muhammad or anybody else that is part of the divine. You need to, if you're going to send an envelope asking for help, it's got to make the address. It's got to have an address on it, right? If it's blank and you just stick it in the mailbox, it's not going to go anywhere. So just asking the universe for protection. There's no universe out there to provide protection. That's what we've learned in this project, Carl.
Yeah, the universe doesn't care about you. I mean, it can't. It is not interested in individual human beings and their story or their lives. So there are beings who are working against you And there are beings who want to help you, but you have to ask for help from them. That's part of the paradigm here.
It's the rules of
When will we
engagement.
learn? So
Yep.
we're here to help point these things out, and your choices are coming into focus, and we'll attend to that now.
Yes. U.S. Creator, it seems clear that remote viewing is fraught with risk and great hazards. How can empowered prayer and the Lightworker healing protocol eventually change this?
All right, Creator says, what we were wanting to inform you about and reinforce is the message that as a physical human being, you are in a dangerous place and at risk for your survival. You are vulnerable and you are being targeted to some degree always, because humanity is being constrained and manipulated always and has been all through history. You have been made the playthings of extraterrestrial overseers who are now wanting your wholesale elimination because they are tired of their games and want to be done with you. If that happens, it will bring to an end the divine human free will experiment that has been ongoing for a huge interval of time, even predating the existence of humanity itself as a sentient being. Other civilizations before yours were created to reckon with this problem of evil. You are the youngest to be brought into the fray. But if you have been heavily manipulated to reduce your ability to even understand what is going on and why, let alone the wherewithal to surmount the challenge, this puts you at a great disadvantage. And this is, again, why you need divine assistance. The best way to partner with the divine is to do so directly, using tools designed for the task. The first of these is empowered prayer, as we have taught your channel to recommend that people use daily prayer that is enhanced to be specific enough for what is needed and to incorporate a number of strategies to leverage the meaning and intentions of a prayer so that it can be amplified effectively to have greater impact. These are straightforward notions with an understanding of energy, that prayers are a creation that can be referenced multiple times and the energy repurposed. So a prayer launched a single time, if requested for this to happen, can be reutilized by the divine realm over and over. Similarly, prayers of a similar nature, when requested by those praying, can be pulled together to mutually enhance the effectiveness of each individual contribution to the pool. So having a series of prayers that are simple to say or think in one's thoughts, that cover the major needs for comfort, safety, security, and well-being can be a great beginning. And if enough people follow the example, the power of that energetic pool will grow and become a force to reckon with, because it will enable the divine realm to do much more than at present to assist humanity with its struggle. The main obstacle you face is your adversaries working against you actively, the dark spirits and the extraterrestrial beings here in the physical, but working behind the scenes with great effectiveness to control and manipulate your society. They have the power to destroy you. We have kept this from happening heretofore, but there is a limit to how much we can do, and that is because your outreaches to us are so very limited. And we must use your energies to save you, not ours, in keeping with the rules of engagement here, that this was an experiment in human free agency and free will. Now that evil has arisen as a risk and danger to you and your survival, you must apply a solution. That is what the Lightworker Healing Protocol is for. It contains a comprehensive list of sources of negativity, what can be done about them, and requires application of the very strategies and how the divine realm brings healing about. This is new information that greatly empowers the requester, because you will be truly, for the first time, asking for all the right things in all the right ways. That is the key to forming and implementing an effective divine partnership of great power. It can save you if enough human beings avail themselves of the opportunity. Your channel offers training in how to use the Lightworker Healing Protocol. You can also request healing sessions to be done for yourself and loved ones, and so on, all of which adds energy to the enterprise as a whole. The key is having enough people to reach a tipping point that will forever change things for the better by providing a window of time to complete the healing of humanity. This will allow the planned ascension to rescue you from the physical plane, so never again will you be vulnerable and at the mercy of dark forces and evildoers. The healing you have begun for the interlopers working against you can then be continued to completion and ultimate full success, and will be the greatest contribution by anyone ever in the entirety of the universe, and indeed prior universes before the current one. This is what you can be a part of as literally boots on the ground, adding your energies to make a difference. And that will stand for all of time as the greatest of human achievements. And to your credit, along with your brethren who are awake and willing to add their loving intentions to the enterprise. In being the greatest of victories, it also represents the greatest of opportunities. Nothing will grow your soul more than helping others on such a grand scale. The choice is yours to act on our information, take it to heart, and embrace your birthright as a divine extension of our consciousness who has come here to help.
Yep, it's really all about partnership with the divine, and the best way to do that is with empowered prayer and the Lightworker Healing Protocol. You can get our prayer book, getwisdom.com/prayer. But I encourage you, especially, to download the ebook on the LHP. You can get that at getwisdom.com/LHP, getwisdom.com/LHP. It's a recently enhanced LHP. It's more powerful than ever, with even greater promise than ever before, Carl.
Well, we're improving it all the time through a variety of means, and it does get better and better, but it's extremely powerful at present. And we've been told it can do the job, but it needs human application of intention.
Yes,
it's just a tool.
And we still need a quorum, so we need more people doing it. So be sure to get the ebook, getwisdom.com/LHP. That's all we have for this week's Get Wisdom Live. Thanks, everybody.
Be well.